to hold it together, but the universe being what the universe is, today's topic is very close to home. My beloved grandmother, one of the pillars and safeties of my life, went into hospice day before yesterday and is actively dying, and I could get a text while we're here, so I'll do my best to hold my shit together. I just said a bad word from the pulpit. Oh my gosh. Oh, sorry. So, this time of year, the days are getting short, the weather's getting cold, the trees and the plants are dying all around us, and it is natural and it is normal to think about death and to think about the ones that we have loved and the ones that we have lost. It's like we're constantly being smacked in the face by the reminder that none of us are here for long. Everyone we love will eventually die. And regardless of anything we say or do, the cycle of life is going to keep on turning. The dark time, the dead time, will be upon us soon. When my kids were little, they used to ask me, why do people have to die? And I would say, well, to make room for the babies. And I have to say, I think one of the great gifts of being part of a church community is we have babies that we get to pass around and smooch and see and listen to and hold to remind us we just need to keep making space. This is what it means to be human. Now, loving people comes pretty naturally to most of us. I mean, there are bumps and challenges, but we are social animals, and we're wired to connect with one another. Where it gets tricky is when we're connected to someone who's in pain. Part of connecting is feeling empathy. When you hurt, I hurt. I could get really geeky here and talk about mirror neurons, but I won't, because you already know this. This is how we are made. We're wired to feel empathy and compassion for one another. But none of our connections last forever. The fundamental work of living is not just the loving part, but the letting go. Now, I think most of us have an easier time loving than we do letting go. I know I do. But all of us need to develop the capacity to do both, because letting go is what frees us up to love. I know a woman who is very good at loving, but has never really learned how to let go. Her dad died when she was in her 20s. And it hurt too much, and she didn't know how to deal with it. So she stuffed it, which people do. And then as her life went on, anytime she experienced additional loss or sadness, it would tap into that grief that she still carried around her dad, which still felt overwhelming. And so she'd stuff those new feelings too. More and more pain and grief stuffed into this place inside her, and her fear of losing, her fear of feeling all those difficult feelings made her keep it under very tight wrap, which meant that she wound up cutting herself off from important relationships. She distanced herself from friends and family and even her own children and grandchildren, because these people she loves also remind her of what she's lost, and she's so terrified of what'll happen if that grief gets loose. Now, I believe if she could feel her feelings and then let them go, she could love more freely and generously, but she can't, and so she's trapped. And because this woman is someone I love, and her inability to grieve has led me to let go of some of my hopes and dreams about what our relationship could be, it makes me really sad. It makes me really sad. Nor is this woman the only one. I almost think it's a sickness in our culture, an epidemic of stiff upper lips. The infection spreads every time someone asks, "How are you?" And we answer, "I'm fine," whether it's true or not. I'm often amazed when offering pastoral care to people how one story leads to another, grief to grief to grief, down and down and down into that place where we pack our feelings. Now, I don't say this with any judgment at all. Being human is hard work, and far be it for me to critique anyone who's doing their best. But I think it becomes a little easier and a little more possible when we don't hide from the reality that every relationship involves loss. Every relationship requires that we be able to let go. Now, at various times in our life, here's a list of some of the things we might need to let go of. Expectations, judgments, anger, frustration, past hurts and offenses, children, the need to control, pets, the person themselves, people we love. And this is the deal. This is the deal. Grief and loss are the price we pay for loving. And you know what? No matter how hard it is to pay it at any given moment, that challenge never outweighs the value of the gift that love brings or brought. When determining what to let go of, we need to reflect on the things we want to hold on to as well, because part of the grief process involves sifting through our memories, letting go of things we don't need or want anymore, focusing on things that help us live more fully in the present. You've all been to a memorial service. What do? We lift up and celebrate the gifts. And there's a subtext at every service I've ever led, every service I've ever attended. You lift up and celebrate the gifts, and underneath that, you let go of the mistakes. We release the regrets. We hold tight to the legacy. And this is actually, I think, one gift that other people's mortality gives us. It frees us to pick and choose what parts of their stories we want to weave into our own. The death of a loved one doesn't mark an end to our love for them. It just marks an end to the need to negotiate with that person the terms on which we love each other. In other words, once someone dies, we can choose to love them in whatever way is useful and life-giving. They don't care anymore. They're dead. As one day we all will be. My dad, when the doctor gave him the terminal diagnosis in the car afterwards, said to me, "So what am I supposed to do? Just die?" And I said, "Oh, Dad, none of us get out of this alive." And then I reminded him of something that he knew, as we all do. If loss and grief are the price we pay for the gift of love, then death is the price we pay for the gift of living. And again, the value of that gift is immeasurable. There's an old Zen parable about a man who was running away from tigers, and his flight took him to the edge of a cliff. With no other alternative, he lowered himself over the cliff and began to climb down, but then he slipped, and he heard growling, and he looked down, and he realized that more tigers waited at the base just as hungry. Then he slipped. Sorry, I read that wrong. And found himself hanging onto a tree root, unable to climb in either direction. Tigers above, tigers below. And in that moment, he realized that if he stretched himself to the utmost, he could just reach a ripe strawberry that was growing in a nearby crevice. So he stretched, and he plucked, and he ate, and nothing in this world ever tasted so sweet. We who are alive are called to the work of living over and over again, and that work is to love what is mortal, hold it against our bones, knowing our own lives depend on it. And when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. Remembering we'll lose someone someday helps us love with more intensity and grace. Remembering we will die someday helps us live with more intensity and grace. And remembering all we have loved and all we have let go brings home just how sweet this life, this love is. So be it, and so may it be.